What is happening, everybody, man? Thank you guys tuning in to another episode of One Big Fire. And got all the boys back in the house again today and excited to jump in and chop it up. We've got 3 topics, so want to kind of reset kind of the flow of our One Big Fire conversations. And I know Al reached out and it's like, man, we got to dial it in. We got to get it tight. I'm like, yes, sir. Let's go. And definitely modeling a lot from one of our favorite shows, at the show that I go to get truth. That's the PBD podcast. And I think they've just done an incredible job and really have nailed the format. And so we've been loosely kind of following, but we're going to tighten it up and really identify 3 key topics that we want to unpack. A couple of announcements and a couple cool things that we've got up our sleeve that we're working on. But before we jump into the 3 topics, I know Al, you've been working behind the scenes, updating some much needed update to the Honey Badger Nation swag, and I can't wait for those pieces and things to be revealed. What you got cooking over there?
Man, we got some just fresh merch, man, coming out, and We've been wearing the merch for years now, and it's just time for an upgrade. And so we have a new legacy line coming out here. It's actually already built. If you want a sneak peek, go to honeybadgernation.com, click on the merch button, just scroll down. Speaking of honeybadgernation.com, that's getting a facelift, and there'll be a fresh look to that. So look for that coming soon. But for right now, you can go there, click on the merch, and check out the legacy line. There's going to be limited amounts of these this merch available. What we're going to be doing is switching up the theme a bit. We actually have a One Big Fire theme coming out, so that'll be fun. But some of the stuff you're going to see us wearing on the podcast, you'll be able to grab for, again, a limited amount of time. We're going to put it up there, and then we're going to change it up. We're going to another theme. Just keep things fresh. People love the merch. We see people. We've had baby onesies, from anywhere from that to underwear. And I think we're going to discontinue the underwear. That wasn't a big, but the hats, the shirts, the notebooks. When you go to an event, taking notes. I know we all like to do that. We all like our hardbound notebooks. There's going to be some really cool stuff. It's actually there. Click on the legacy link in Honey Badger merch and stay tuned because we are going to see that on us. We're going to be sporting it. And you can too. So I'm excited to get that out.
Me too, man. Definitely, keeping it fresh. There's so many, just little cool themes and ideas with us over the years, being able to really put out there. And I definitely like the limited supply for sure. The other thing, man, that you brought up that I'm really, really excited about, that we want to kind of tease a little bit, and it's the most sought after award, right? You look back at, when we were doing EGS and the NAEA days, and it was the award that people were jockeying for throughout the year to be able to be positioned to receive. And cause I'll let you kind of tease what the award is, and then we can share later in the show how we're going to go about nominating for this prestigious award.
Yeah, man. The thing that you learn being in this industry is that, man, it's bound to happen where you're going to have to go through some stuff. You might have 8 or 10 years of nothing but good, and then all of a sudden you go through some stuff. And we've all done it. Many of us, many times, have gone through these valleys. And I always joke because, sometimes the value, if it's too fresh, man, you don't even want to talk about it. But those valleys are some of the best stories. It's really what creates, I think the spirit of a honey badger is when you go through some really tough times in your business and you come out and you're better for it. And so we did an award that, at the time we didn't really realize was going to become the most coveted award at all of our events. And it was the Honey Badger Award. And it was just based on, what they had to go through, and just really being the spirit of a honey badger. And so that, we customized the gift. It was always something very unique. But that became, the award, which is funny because, you really don't want to get that award because some stuff. But yeah, we just, we always wanted to, have something that we rewarded people that that just, embody the spirit of being a honey badger. I think that's, that's kind of why it's our moniker. It's our,
spirit animal.
Spirit animal. There you go. That's what I was looking for. It's been our spirit animal for a long time, and it's I think it embodies what it takes to be successful in anything, and so yeah, that's going to be a fun award doing that monthly. So you'll be able to nominate folks in Honey Badger Nation for that award. So if you know somebody that's really embodying the spirit of being a honey badger, nominate them for the award. It's going to be fun. We'll do that every month.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And if you're thinking like, well, I'm not part of the Honey Badger group. Yes, you are. You just don't know it yet. We have opportunities coming here that you can absolutely be part of our community and plug in. More on that later. But JK47.
Yes, sir. We'll talk more about that. And I got some other additional ideas with it from awards perspective and then nomination and then for the yearly and some stuff that we'll tease a little bit later. But, a lot of topics that we could really dive into. I think, picking out, the three most important right now for us to dive into. Obviously, we need to unpack and touch on, kind of what the plays Zillow has made. EXP's move. You're seeing a few others follow suit, but also some of those that are drawing a line in the sand. The other topic we want to dive into, and just from an understanding perspective is, America's real estate, right? The advantage of, under siege, also kind of part of why Zillow made the move, but, definitely get Leo's take on that. And then also, I want to hit on 5 questions that agents need to be asking themselves right now if they feel stuck or they feel things are really slow. Some things that we can give them to be thinking about to help navigate the waters of just uncertainty right now that's going on in the market. And definitely we've got a lot of love up north in Canada, a lot of great humans, great agents up there. And, they're going what we went through in October, right? They're dealing with right now as they've got elections 2 weeks out. And so, being able to have some understanding and be like, listen, right. We get it. We went through it. The beautiful thing is that, they have the spring market coming. We had winter coming. So they've got a little bit of an advantage to hopefully move quick after the elections, but we'll talk more about that. But let's dive in, man. Let's hit this first topic. Talking about how Zillow is going to prohibit listings that are privately marketed starting in May. So let's unpack that. I know we have some strong opinions, some strong feelings around that. Definitely our love-hate relationship with Zillow, but definitely, man, it's worth understanding and diving into.
Absolutely, man. This is a big one. Like this is, the future of this industry is hanging in the balance with the decisions that are being made right now. And, I've never been a big fan of Zillow, but I'm a big fan of what they just did. When it comes down to, these companies that are wanting, especially specifically Compass, like, wanting to take their listings and take them off market, it seems like a good strategy. It's a bold strategy. But the underlying question is, what's best for the consumer? Is that best for the consumer? If you've been to anywhere else other than the United States and Canada and tried to look at real estate, and there's 3 different listings on classificados.com with 3 different prices from 3 different agents, and you see how real estate is done everywhere else in the world, you would never trade what we have for that. Like it is not, from a buyer perspective, it's terrible. From a seller perspective, I mean, I'm just using Puerto Rico as an example, and that's actually improving and moving in the right direction in Puerto Rico. But it was awful. Like the seller that my house that was listed, I was living in, I was leasing the house in Dorado Beach East. She knew I was in real estate. It'd been on the market a year. They didn't have photos. It wasn't anywhere. It wasn't listed anywhere. They didn't show it one time, and she thought it was for sale the whole time. And I said, the first thing I would do is fire the agent. Like this agent they don't even have pictures. They wanted to send somebody pictures, and they asked us to take pictures of the house while we were living in it for them. I was like, that's pathetic. But that's what happens when there's no controls and there's no agreements where we're working together in the marketplace. It's just the wild, wild west. And that's what you get. And that's the worst case scenario, is we're going back in time to a place where the data is not true. You can't find information. You can't find comps. You can't trust the square footage being correct. Like all of those issues happen when you start to silo up the listings and not make them public. That's one of the rare things about the U.S. market that we don't want to lose.
Al, what's your take? Right? I mean, we asked the question before we went live. Always ask what is best for XYZ. What is always best for the consumer?
Well, what is best for a particular home seller? It's we all know that supply and demand is a law that you can't buck on it. It is what it is. It's a principle. It's a law because it's a fact that the more buyers you can expose to any product, I don't care if it's a car. If you had, let's say, a old Cadillac collector vehicle, right, and you're like, all right, I've had enough fun with this. It's time to sell it. You have a choice. You could put it out on the biggest car portals out there to get the highest exposure to the most amount of buyers, which then in fact, you're going to get the highest offer, versus, or you could put it on your front lawn and you can hope that somebody that just happens to drive by that street and the time that you have it out on that lawn is going to see it, fall in love, and pay you the highest price. And we know by putting it out there, which is why all the biggest marketers want their listings exposed at the highest to the highest number of buyers. So what are the consequences if you don't? There was just an example Leo had brought up about a deal that closed about 23% below every comp in that particular neighborhood. It had 0 days on the market. One company got both sides of it. It had no exposure. There was no transparency. There was no fairness. And those sellers lost hundreds or tens of thousands of dollars, possibly hundreds of thousands of dollars if it was a high price range, versus all the other homeowners that listed their property. So, we're talking about big money, not little money here. And I believe that obviously, self-serving, Zillow did it as a they're positioning it as a consumer move, but it's also serving them. Let's not pull punches here. They want every listing on there, including for sale by owners, which I want to get your guys' take on that. So for sale by owners aren't put into the MLS ever, right? Unless, of course, they go with one of these FSBO companies. So I wonder if they're going to rip those off Zillow if they don't list. That would be a nice little rule. I don't think they're going to go in that direction. But, they're positioning themselves from the consumer standpoint. That's EXP agrees with it. If it basically comes down to, if you don't put if you list a home and you don't have it in the MLS within 24 hours and Zillow somehow finds out about it, that they're marketing the property to another group. I read specifically it's another group. For instance, your office only. If you're going to allow, and the argument on the other side, let's talk about that as well. It's not right for every home seller out there to put their home on out there on all these portals and put it into the MLS. They just want private. Okay, fine. What do you guys think the percentage is of all home sellers that are out there that are potentially want to market? And I haven't met one seller that said, don't give me the highest price.
Exactly.
Not just a mediocre price. I mean, if it's 20%, 20% below market, that's fine. Okay, cool. There's a ton of investors that'll go out there and buy those deals off market. They happen every single day. That's fine. But someone that hires a real estate agent, most of the time, I would say all of the time, they want the best terms and price for their home. And in order to do that, it has to be exposed. Have you guys ever met a seller that said, hey, I want the highest and best price and best terms. That's what I want to hire you to do, but I don't want it advertised anywhere.
Yeah.
I don't
have to sell it.
The sellers that aren't really sellers. Those are the people that I'd sell it if I can get this price. Like it's not not your ideal seller. Those are not the people I like to work with. I know that.
Yeah.
They're not highly motivated.
No.
And if they're not highly motivated, when you do all the work and bring them an offer and they don't take it, then you're scratching your head. You worked for free. And you're wondering, do I really want this listing? Are they really all in and selling it, or are they just kind of interested? So I think committed sellers.
Absolutely. We do. And I believe the market conditions we are in currently in the States and obviously in Canada as well, is that like you will be wasting your time with want tos. You have to find the have tos. And, I think that comes down to somebody just not knowing their worth, not knowing their value. and getting hung up. And just because you got one on the hook doesn't mean you need to reel it in. And so I think that's just really understanding that from knowing their true motivation and true goal. So looking at, everything, kind of reading through kind of what's being put out there, the move. Just being able to create the most amount of exposure. And it really ties into the whole second point as well. The second thing that we want to touch on in Leo's stance on, if we don't do this, what we can potentially and possibly experience and see. And I think that truly only comes from, he touched on it when we had him on One Big Fire at the end of last year. He touched on it again in Cleveland last year. And I think it's only having the viewpoint and understanding of how real estate truly happens in other countries. And, being able to work with our boys in Portugal, it's wild, right? It's just absolutely wild. You have the firsthand experience in Puerto Rico, but just being able to hear how they have to go about navigating things in Portugal, it is just, it's ridiculous. Like, I don't know how we could do what we were able to do, even as a consumer looking for properties and not knowing you got to do all the due diligence. It is just not what is in the best interest of buyers, sellers, anybody.
It's going to be interesting how this plays out, guys. Like truthfully, I like the angle that Refkin's taken. He's trying to make a bold move. I think it's crazy. I think he's absolutely nuts, because I know, like, you're betting on one of two things at this point. If he sticks to his guns on this, which he'd be crazy to do, there's a lot of backlash from agents, a lot of backlash from sellers that would come from this. If inventory starts to climb and we have an abundance of inventory, meaning rates stay high, and we eventually get some inventory on the market, or they come down enough where people start selling, then this doesn't work, right? You have houses that expire. That becomes the market could help him win this, or it could help him lose this. But if there's not a lot of inventory, then he does have a competitive advantage to a certain degree. And so the market, the timing of this is going to be very important as to whether or not it's going to work or not. If he chooses to die on this mountain, which Rob Edwards is watching from San Francisco, made a comment on YouTube, he's been building this for the last 5 years. He's going to die on this mountain. He might very well die on this mountain. They still haven't figured out how to turn a profit. If you're a Compass agent, go listen to the calls that are done the public calls for Compass, and listen to the strategy they're talking about to all these investors. They're not an agent centric company. You guys don't
unpack that, cuz I think that's important for everybody to really understand, so they can get the full understanding of how and why decisions are being made like this.
Yeah, 100%. Compass is trying to be the brand. They're not trying to support the agent and make the agent the brand. They're trying to be the brand. And if they are able to be successful at doing this and moving all that inventory in-house, what's to say they don't change their independent contractor agreements and put them all on 60-40 splits like the old days, because they control the marketplace. And so if you listen to the earnings calls, they literally talk to the investors, and they're saying, our goal is going to be to take more from the agent. We're going to lower the increase the percentage we take from an agent by 1% a year over the next 5 years. That's how we're going to become profitable. That's what they said a few years ago. So if you're over there and you're like, I'm big Compass fan, you're literally sitting in the lion's den. They're looking to take more and more from you, not help you. So this move, if he is successful in pulling this off, it's going to be complete chaos. They're going to have a competitive advantage, but you're the agent over there that could end up on a 60-40 split because of it. And so, they have control of that. If they are able to pull this off, it's a big deal. Zillow's move was huge. We know why they did it. They want everything on. They don't want they're not going to allow anything to be put on Zillow. They already know how to scrape the data. They know if something gets listed on Compass's site, and it will not get listed on Zillow ever. And if I'm an agent and I'm competing against a Compass agent for a listing, I am going to crush you. I'm going to crush you every time. I'm going to win, because I'm going to explain. And this is why I love, the understanding what moves the competitors are making and what they're doing, and saying, see 25% of all listings before it hits MLS. I said, if I sit in front of a seller and I explain to them 71% of all sales are done by a cooperative agent, that means you're leaving the largest chunk of the potential buyer that might pay the most for your home completely out of the picture about knowing about your property. That is not what's best for you in terms of marketing. Would you like to attract the high offer, or would you like to attract the low offer? Well, I want to attract the high offer. Then we need to get the most eyeballs on this home as possible. I will beat every Compass agent over and over and over again with just that one thing. That you gave me that one thing, and I can go beat you now. And so if they're going to potentially lose agents over it, there's going to be a lot of noise. It would be it's a crazy ballsy move to stick to it. If he sticks to it, he's crazy. But if he bows down, then it's everybody's on Zillow. That's the move. We're now we choose your poison here, right? Like it's how much do we trust Zillow? Not that much. How much do we trust Compass? Not at all. Okay, which direction do we want to go? I think you have to go what's best for the consumer. What's best for the consumer and what's best for the industry as a whole. That's how you have to look at this, and that's why I think Zillow's move was smart. And I think Leo, being the gangster he is, made the right move in backing it.
Yeah, and what I love and value from a leadership perspective, because I think looking back and seeing the biggest void in this industry is a lack of leadership, first and foremost. And so when you've got somebody at the helms making quick decisions, it was funny. I don't know if you saw Al Senior Mike Incavaya posted. We were on our coaching call and we were talking through, and I'm like, listen, the most important thing you guys can do is lead, right? You're not sheep, you're lions. You have to take that. This is wartime, not peacetime. And you got to understand the difference. And there's agents right now that are in the wash that are not built for market conditions, and they're just going to wash out. And then you've got, the right type of mentality, the right type of agents that'll be coming in. And we were talking about leadership and making decisions. I said, but you've got to have really good decision-making filters to make decisions fast. And I forget who told me, but the single default for Leo is that he doesn't like noise, meaning if it's noisy, he makes the noise go away. And, we all have quick decision-making filters. So what does that look like to be able to make it? And it just popped up. I said, you just got to lead, right? When we're talking about lions, not sheep, she goes, lead like Leo. And so she just started, she's like, we're just going to hashtag that. So I thought it was really good, but I want to kind of transition on this other point. And we've kind of talked a little bit about Zillow's play. And then also, Leo being quick to make the decision. And I think it comes from experience. I think it comes from a global perspective to see the markets. But I want to read this from the Inman article that really talks about, how America real estate, if this doesn't stay the course, we're in trouble. And here's what we're in trouble for. And this is what I really love about it. So EXP last year, over 350,000 transactions, only 1,000 were off market. So just a transparent marketplace, so where every buyer and seller deserves fair access to opportunity. This is what I love right in here. It gets into it. The envy of the global real estate community is now under attack. Firsthand, what happens when transparency breaks down. So, cuz this is 100% to your story, your experience, what I've been able to see and help our Rodolfo and Nuno in Portugal. And they give the example in France. This will sound familiar, cuz in France, buyers must check 8 different sites to see 70% of the inventory.
Yeah.
And if they're lucky, there has to be an element of luck. Sellers pay per listing per month to appear online. And agents, they're navigating chaos, all while the most vulnerable buyers are left behind, priced out, and shut out and simply overlooked. Here's where it gets really interesting. Let's put this into perspective of buyers and sellers. A deal closed at 23% below every comp in the neighborhood. One company, both sides, 0 days on market, no exposure, no transparency, no fairness. The seller lost hundreds of thousands of dollars of money, of equity. And now every homeowner in the neighborhood has to answer to that sell when refinancing or listing their own property.
Yeah, it hurts the neighbors too.
Yep.
I want everyone to, kind of like, if you're an agent, most of our audience are agents. I want you, if you're an agent listening to this, to take the agent hat off, put your home buyer hat on for a second, okay? And I want you to imagine if we all just said, yep, Rifkin's right, let's follow Compass's lead, let's everybody do this. First of all, EXP, we're the number one single real estate, residential real estate company in the world. So if anyone would benefit from this, it would be us. We could, if we just went along with his move here, we as a company would benefit. But you know who loses? The consumer. So think about it from the consumer standpoint. Imagine you're a buyer. You're looking in Frisco, Texas, one of the hottest markets in the United States right now. Everybody's moving to Frisco, right? And you had to look at 17 different real estate brokerages sites just to see not 100%, just 70. You're not even seeing everything that's in that market. And you got this, it's all about who you know. Does this sound familiar, Jay? Puerto Rico, the Good Old Boys Club.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Even you, to sell your house recently, you had to kind of connect with all the influencer agents just to try to get a fair offer on your house. Let me tell you guys, Jay, I want you to go on this. If you're a consumer, we do not want this in the United States. I'm telling you right now, we're ahead of the curve. And what this would do, if everyone just said, yeah, he's right, all the brokers do this, Keller Williams, RE/MAX, EXP, all of them, you know who would suffer? It'd be the home buyers. It would not be the experience we see today. You'd miss out on that great house. You would not see all of the listings. And from a seller's perspective, you could be losing hundreds of thousands of dollars, as John pointed out. Jay, you have some firsthand experience.
I mean, it fosters more opportunity for agents to do the wrong thing, like that. And I mean, it's dirty dog. Where I was at, like they don't tell you nothing about nothing unless they're the one that shows it to you. So you got to talk to 10 agents to find out what's for sale. It's just not. It's a terrible process, but it makes it easier for agents to steer and to manipulate what they're going to show and what they're going to tell someone about or not tell someone about. There's no transparency. And that just it creates when you start pulling on this yarn and you start thinking of all the things that it's going to impact. Now you can't get an appraisal. Now someone's doing a loan and you got a comp that you have to use, and all of these little things are just absolutely messy, and it makes the whole real estate experience a horrible experience, which is not good for consumers, not good for agents, not good for anybody. And so it's not the right thing to do. It's I see the reasons why someone might want to, but it's not what's best for the industry as a whole. It's not best for the consumers. And that's where we have to stay focused. This is one of the rare places in the world where real estate works, and it's better. And we're on the verge of really screwing that up. And it's a big deal. It's a real deal.
And we're on the envy. I mean, talking, Leo and listening and like, just I keep default back to, Rodolfo and Nuno. They're like, we wish our real estate was as transparent and ran like it is in the United States. So it's something like, it's think about it, Al, to your point, 4 to 7 million people are making a move. They're looking to make sure we get it right and not leaving, for most, that's the only wealth that they'll ever create is through the home ownership and through real estate. So, start monkeying with that, right? What happens? What's the ripple effect, right? What's down river from that decision? And most people don't think about that.
The last time that we saw listings not available to everybody was right before the millennium, right? Like 98, 99. I think realtor.com came out, and don't quote me on this year, but it was somewhere around 99. This realtor.com thing appeared, and it was before Zillow. And I remember I was at a Century 21 office. A lot of like OGs of the industry from our area were all in there. And as soon as it was announced that all of the listings that were in the MLS were now going to be broadcasted out to everyone, the agents did, the old guys in my office freaked out. They thought their business was going to be done. They're like, oh man, what value do we have now? Because why? Because back in the 80s, 90s, you had to go to the broker to get what? The listings. You couldn't just go on www.realtor.com, Zillow.com, yourwebsite.com and find all the listings. You had to go to a real estate broker's office. They had to go in there and to this old DOS computer that was our MLS then and print out these it looked like a data sheet of numbers and letters everywhere. It wasn't even fun to look at. I remember fun story. When I first got my license and I walked into the office, there was a line from the front door all the way to the back. There was this real long hallway. You know why? There was only one computer in the whole office. We all had to share it. And if you needed to print listings out for your buyer or whatever, you had to stand in line to use the computer. I'm not making it up. We don't want to go back to those. That's the ice ages. Okay.
Well, think about this too, is the evolution of how brokerages have evolved. Like back then, like this was like my dad was in the business in the 70s, got in the business in the 70s. And, I jumped in the late 90s. They were still acting like they were in the 70s in Lawton, Oklahoma, but with the MLS books and all that stuff, that was 60 days. The day you got it, it was 60 days old. So like that was what everybody was using. But back then, what was the split if you were at a Coldwell Banker? You were on a 50-50. Why? Because the brokerage controlled the phones, they controlled all of the you had to, as a buyer, you had to come into the brokerage. Like they controlled everything, and it was that was not an agent centric model. And that's the direction they're moving back to. And if you think Compass is not going to tweak the numbers in terms of the commission split back in their favor, if they can pull this off, you're crazy. That's all they're trying to do. It's the only way they can make money is take more from you as an agent. So anybody that's participating over there in this is just participating in your own demise if he pulls it off anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%, man. And, just made me kind of, as we're going through this, just working with some agents that are breaking into, luxury, right? Higher end luxury, the 3 different levels of luxury. And, when we do a competition analysis coming into a market, they'll pull it up, and it's no different than what we do in the clarity report. Like, look at your competition. They look at them, they're going, I can't, how do they have any market share? How do they sell any houses for what they do? They provide no real value to the consumer. And that's why it's like, once you realize that in the agents, they're dominating with, being able to crack into these tough markets, because people are trying to, the good old buddy network. Hey, we're buddies. You got to list, your multi-million-dollar property with me. And that's not what's best for the consumer. So we definitely don't want to go back into the way that's not going to be the best, being able to create as much demand. So I want to shift to this last point. And this was more kind of an article on Nowban talking about 5 questions to ask when the market feels slow. Just being kind of, really sensitive to, the climate across the country. There is pockets, right? There's pockets that are smoking hot, but there's pockets that are a dead standstill. And it's just, why every market's a little bit different. And so for a lot of folks, they're feeling it, or their team is feeling it. And so I think this just kind of caught my attention to talk about and really think about the questions, right? Change your questions, change your life, and just think about things a little bit differently, and really put the emphasis on what is within my control. And the one thing that they talked about here before we talk about these 5 questions, and I agree. They said the agents who succeed during slow times, right? They avoid getting trapped in negativity, excuses, and self-doubt. They succeed during this time because they're the ones not complaining. They're the ones who have doubled down and keep showing up no matter what. And I would go on to say they focus on, is this within my control? And I think that's one of the top questions we always talk about. What's the goal? Is that really the goal? What am I going to do today within my control to move closer to my goal? And so here's a couple questions. Love to get your guys' take on these questions. Question number 1, how many meaningful conversations have I had with people in my database this week?
So good.
Yeah. That's a leading indicator of that. It's the one measurement. When we built Funnel Pilot, the one thing that when I distilled it down to principles, if you're an agent and you're wanting to sell more houses, it comes down to how many conversations per day are you having with people that want to buy and sell and are open to doing business with you. And you're only going to have those meaningful conversations by talking to people in your database and figuring out which ones are. And so but if you can increase that number, it's a leading indicator of how many sales you're going to have. That's the thing you have to change. That's the focus every day is that one thing. It's the most important thing. And so, yeah, that's that either you're having conversations or you're not. Like,
yeah. I don't know if you guys remember, I hired a guy named Jeremy. It was over 10 years ago, and he was the #1 Kirby salesman for Kirby vacuum cleaners. I don't know if anybody has never heard of Kirby. They make some really powerful vacuum cleaners, and they only sell these things door to door. Now imagine you're someone that makes a living from selling these things, and you're basically top of funnel is the street you pick, and you go door to door trying to sell somebody a vacuum that they don't necessarily, maybe they don't need. They got a vacuum, but these are trained killers, right? And one of their #1 metrics, how many doors did you knock? Now, I'm not suggesting I do not knock doors. I used to do that back in the day with the expireds. I wanted to beat the mail, so I would go and knock on that expired's door. But it boils down to a metric. The reason I told the story about Jeremy, because I implemented the same systems. They had it. He actually got it from a different industry, whatever. But it was just a formula, and our formula for success was 25 new opportunities per month, should lead to 10 face-to-face appointments, should lead to 4 sales. This is a
25, 10,
simple
4.
formula that we followed. Our ISAs followed it, right? So our goal, each ISA, was to get 25, each of them, 25 new opportunities. What's an opportunity? It's someone who's motivated. We talked about the motivation thing, right? They're motivated to sell their home or buy, but we were always focused on the listing side. And they have not committed to another agent, meaning they're open to doing business with you as a professional, if you can gain the trust with them and sign that agreement, and that they're willing to do it. They're ready, willing, and able. They're able to buy. They're not broke. You know, they actually have the means to actually make that purchase. That's what I consider an opportunity. And so how many of those conversations are you having? How many new opportunities are you creating? And the cool thing is, like, yes, how many conversations? Before you have the conversation, you got to have the opportunity, which is why Funnel Pilot was created, to create those opportunities, to bring those into your top of funnel, into your CRM and into your world, so that you could start to build that trust with that person and then eventually have the conversation. So
yeah, it's so good. So guys, Al's talking about his 25-10-4. We did one of the very first Expert Mentors Live episodes. We're almost at episode 300. I think we're scheduled to hit 300 in July. So on the Expert Mentor series, one of the very first ones, one of the top 5, first 10 episodes we did was on the 25-10-4. So if you guys listening in want to check that out, go to emlreplays.com and you could go and check out Al talking about the 25-10-4. So good. All right. Question number 2. Am I offering real value to my clients in Sphere this month, or am I just checking in? What is real value? What is not generic? What stands out that we need to be really thinking about with your clients in your Sphere? What is real value right now in the market?
This is an easy one for me. Your market updates are the most. First, you need to establish your expertise consistently, right? So, like, being personally relevant with people and being professionally relevant. Being professionally relevant is understanding what's going on in the marketplace and communicating that to your sphere of influence, to your database, to the people that are watching, they don't know what to trust, watching the news, seeing this thing, that thing. How is this impacting things? You should be the voice of reason for your entire database. And, you know, that's knowing the data, communicating the data, you know, keeping current matters is my favorite, market trends, all the different reports we've used over time, but being able to take that information and communicate that out so that you can really educate people as to what's really truly going on, being that voice of calm in all the chaos.
Yeah.
I could comment to what's not. Your funny TikTok videos that you're hoping goes viral is not changing anyone's life. I can tell you they're fun to watch. They might be fun to shoot, but you can't, I learned this back in coaching with Kinder Reese and NAEA, John. You can't be an expert and claim to be an expert without actually being an expert. Mm-hmm. And how do you do that? So the cool thing with what you said, Jay, is you can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. One, you have to study the market and be an expert. You got to know your numbers. I remember when I would go into a listing appointment, I would memorize the numbers. I'm not very good with memorizing a lot of things, but I can memorize just a couple little things that would position me, as the expert in front of that seller. I'd reel off how many homes that they're in competition with him right now are on the market. I would know it. I wouldn't go look at a sheet on it. I would know it. I would bring the sheet, don't get me wrong, but I would memorize. I would be positioning myself as an expert. I would know how many sold in the last 6 months. And is it a buyer's or a seller's market? So it wasn't much to know, but the more you start digging into that, yes, put that content out there. I'll tell you this. If I'm a seller, if I'm thinking of selling my house and an agent's putting funny TikToks up of them dancing around and on a pogo stick or pretending to beat somebody up because blah, 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 whatever, that might be fun and entertainment for people to watch. But if I'm a seller, I'm looking at I'm looking at Jay or John's market update. I want to know how many homes have sold like mine in the last 30 days that I'm competing with. I want to know what the trend is looking like. I want to know, are people moving into the suburb or are they moving out? And there's only way to know that is to study your market. Yeah. Keeping current matters. And from when we used to use it, they've come light years too. They were great then.
Yeah.
And they're even better now with their, in fact, I think we have no affiliation with them, but we used to. They even like help you build the relevant content that positions you as an expert. So yeah, definitely check them out. I haven't seen those reports in a minute, but I know a lot of our agents are leveraging them, and it's really making them shine.
Needs to be your number one expense. Investing in, the relevant information that gives the key resources, of where they're pulling the data. Is just not, this is my guess. This is like, right here's the resource, goes right to it. So this leads right into the third question, Al, that you just hit on. Is my content bringing in new leads or just recycling the same updates with no real energy?
I'm sorry, I jumped the gun on that.
That's perfect, right? It should be to start a conversation. Is it engaging or is it just noise? There's a lot of noise out there. And I think, aligning with AI to be able to help you, and even the direction going back to meaningful conversations within my database, real value that's relevant, that's going to, bring in possible new opportunities. What's resonating now in the market? There's some ways, man. Oh, God, I just think back, just with our Raving Fan program and understanding lifetime value and being able to connect with, the lifetime connection programs that we had built out, how we communicate, what buckets they're in. Are they raving fans? Are they just advocates? Are they one-time customers? How you speak to them, being able to understand, the Harvey McKay 66, understanding hug your customers and all the hug fields. Now with the power of AI, you could quickly, because we used to talk about, hey, could you imagine going into your database, pull up everybody that has dogs, that loves the University of Oklahoma football. Oh, by the way, they're doing a special spring giveaway to bring your pup to the spring practice game. How about we send an information to the database that has like that? That's reality now, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's meaningful. That's real value. That's relevant. But I think to your point, Al, are you doing things that starts a conversation that my filter with marketing was, man, we just got to join the conversation in their head. And we want to go after motivated sellers. What's keeping them up at night? We want to go after motivated real estate agents, that are looking for a new opportunity. What's keeping them up at night? Let's join that conversation. So is your content joining the conversation of the real opportunity in the marketplace?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, we all see people, and I've been guilty of it way back when I first joined Facebook in 2009, 10, everyone was just plastering their new listings all over their Facebook wall. And we still see some of that. And I'm not picking on y'all, but what sells is that the buyers and the sellers, they're human beings before they're a potential buyer, right? They're a human. And all the clients that are out there, Sheplak said it best, is that, like, I think I don't know, I'm making the number up, but he said it's like 96 or 97%, a super high percentage of your audience on social is disinterested. And what do I mean by disinterested? They're not just a buyer and a seller right now. So what do we put up there that's still relevant, still professional, that's still going to capture them when they are ready, not just the 3-4% who are thinking right now. And by just plastering listings all over your wall, you're only appealing to those maybe 3 to 5% of people who in your audience are in the market right now. And so my suggestion is tell stories that connect here. The connection's not made through logic. And by, you can post stats and this and that, but when we're talking about posting, what connects is the heart to the heart. Mm-hmm. It's a story. When, we kind of all both came up with it through Craig Proctor's, putting the ads in, the full page ads. I used to do a full page ad in a magazine called Mimi's here. And my ads weren't ads. They didn't look like an ad. They were a story. Mm-hmm. I would tell a story, not mentioning the seller's name, of a seller who had listed with another broker for 6 months. And they had called me because the home expired, and we would dissect why it didn't. So I would be telling these stories, educating the market and connecting them with them on a deeper level. And so that's what I would encourage you. Tell stories through your social media, and then connect on a deeper level. And then, of course, pepper in the expert data that we were talking about, but just don't pepper all of that in. Really get that human connection going. And now you're going to start having more of those conversations, and you're going to really build trust quicker. Yeah.
And so that perfect segue into question number 4. And am I showing up in places where my ideal clients hang out, online and offline? Am I showing up there? Right. You did the Mimi's ads because that was your target market, and that's your ideal client was there. They were paying attention to that. And I think that's just such an important, factor, is to be able to go. But to your point with storytelling, Sam went to 1000 Watt. They're changing up the name of it. He says it's one of the best marketing events he's ever been to. Sam Basil, and which has been in Dallas, but they're going to in 26. They're going to Denver. And I was like, sign me up. What's the dates? I'm coming. And the theme over there has been the number one thing that we have to focus on with everything we do is storytelling. Mm-hmm. And, I've given you guys examples, talked about it. In my opinion, right now, inside of the real estate game, the one person, if you guys want to get better at telling stories, specifically for your listings, right? The power of video and the power of storytelling is you got to go pay attention to Georgia Tush. She's at the top of the game right now. I don't know anybody better. She just happens to be a storyteller that just happens to sell real estate. That's what she is. This is what we've been talking about for years, right? You have to be a marketer that just happens to do what? Happens to recruit agents, happens to help motivated sellers, has to help first-time home buyers. What do you do? But you got to be a marketer first that just happens to do that. So these questions are all marketing type questions, right? How do I have more meaningful conversations? How do I join the conversation in their head? How do I provide value, real value to the person that's actually going to spend money with me, right? Not just make a new friend. I need to talk to somebody that's going to exchange my value for their money. What type of content am I creating? New leads, stories I'm telling. How am I showing up? And where, most importantly, where am I showing up? And that was always kind of our rule of thumb. Like, we ain't married to nothing. The only thing we're married to is where our target audience, the person that has money, is hanging out. That's where we're going to go. If billboards are working, they're working. If they're not working, they're not working. If radio's working, radio's working. If it's not working, it's not working. TV ads, no, nobody watches TV anymore. We ain't doing that shit, right? We're going to go where they're hanging out. And so I think that's super, super important. And because you think about this all the time. I mean, we all do. Yeah. But where are the ideal clients hanging out right now?
Yeah. I mean, there's all these social media platforms have just changed the whole game as far as, where people tend to, their eyeballs go. It still comes down to fundamentally it's reach and frequency. So, that it's the same reason like why direct mail. So like what I learned when I did billboards and direct mail and newspaper was there was no personality to it, right? Like people didn't feel like they knew me, but they thought of me and they would call me. And that stuff all worked. If I mailed you enough times, you would think of me first and eventually you would call me and I would get the opportunity to list your house. On radio, what I felt instantly different it instantly changed when I started doing radio. Again, running a spot at 7:50 a.m. every single day instead of spray and pray, a 6 a to 10 p type schedule where you don't know who's going to hear that message how many ever times. But every day, the same people are creatures of habit in their car. They're doing whatever their morning ritual is. So there's a small subset of that K-Law station that was always listening at 7:50. And every day I was a first in rotation, told a story of a client story. And after 3 weeks, so basically 15 to 18 days of me being, every day, one message a day to the same people, there started to be this temperature change of people feeling like they knew who I was, like they were my best friend, and they started referring other people they knew, and they started calling, and we're just, the phone was ringing, and so it's still fundamentally reach and frequency. So no matter what the medium is, you still have to have enough frequency in order for them to think of you first, ultimately. And so that's where social media gets a little bit more complicated in terms of what can you be creating that's going to pop up and them happen to actually be, looking at their feed and it be relevant. And that's why I think the only game you can play, and this is what we do with Funnel Pilot, is if we know somebody's interested in new construction Frisco and they clicked on that, we generated a lead from that. Now let's think about content. What all content could I now create that would be super relevant to that person? And then let's put that in their way. Let's put that in the email follow-up attached to a YouTube channel playlist with 15 or 20 videos that might, 8 or 10 of them might be super interesting to them. And so now they're consuming your content. You're forcing them into your world of content. And so it's so cheap and easy to generate the lead. But now you just have to think about what value can I start using to demonstrate my knowledge, so that they think, man, this is my guy. If I'm buying new construction in Frisco, I'm calling this guy. And I think that's how it's not just like I should post 3 times a day on Instagram. That's not going to do it, bro. Like that's not strategy. Strategy is identifying that target market. You can do that through advertising. And now you can use the social media to establish your trust and build trust, because they don't know you. Like if it's somebody that knows you in your database, yeah, it's different. Or somebody refers you, those people already know, like, and trust you. They've already experienced it. Someone who hasn't, you have to be able to bridge the gap with marketing and content and value creation, giving them great things that are helping them with their decision, where they go, man, if I'm doing this, we should call this guy. That to me is the ultimate strategy. And that's why we teach it.
It is 100%. And so, a lot of thoughts, things around there, but these are things that won't change, right? I think that's the one thing that we need to talk about. I use, discipline over disruption, focus on the things that won't change. Fundamentally, no matter what happens, won't change. I truly believe real estate will always come down to a decision of trust, right? Do they trust you because you've been transparent, authentic times time? That's the key. Reach and frequency times time out there to that point. We know storytelling, fundamental. I mean, stories forever. It's always been about stories and storytelling. That'll never change. Relationships, going deep, trust will never change. So that's how the things that we have to do. And I know we had a couple questions on the stories. This is the book. Get it. Stories That Stick. Kendra Hall. It's the best one. It's the best storytelling book. And you just, she breaks down the core fundamentals in every story, 4 types of stories: a value story, a founder story, just all kinds of different stories you need to have.
Dude, I'm getting that book.
Yeah.
I haven't read it yet, but I've read a book on stories, and it was game changing. I want to get the updated version. Get
that one. Seth Godin's on the front, right? Talking about anything he's going to say, you better pay attention to.
I want to break down people that are listening to this. You're listening to this saying, but I'm not a good storyteller. Yeah, but I don't know what to post consistently. Yeah, I know. I hear you, Jay. We got to do this consistently. Like the radio, you don't go into radio for 30 days and say, hey, this didn't work. No, you go in 12 months. You go all in. You're obsessed with success. You're committed and you're all in. But what about, like, I just don't know what to say? Well, let me ask you this. If you're one of those, and I get it, like that's probably one of the biggest, and we solved that problem with Funnel Pilot. We actually give you the content that's relevant to the funnel that's built out so that you don't even have to think about it. But let's go back to that. I'm not good at that. Do you tell stories to your wife when you come home? Do you tell stories to your husband, your kids? Have you ever told your kid a story about something? We all know how to tell stories. Mm-hmm. The matter is let's get yourself out of just get out of the way and start bringing that story to your audience that's going to be relative to, and they're going to connect with that story. That's what you're doing by it. John says about video, right? Video's great. And it doesn't, here's the cool thing. I want to leave with this because I may have to hop off real quick. John says, my bad video outperforms your non-existent one. My bad video. And I want to, I still get postcards to my house from the competing realtors that are trying to get listings in my neighborhood. I'll get them today to still this day. Some of them are good. Some of them are really bad. You know what? They're consistent. I can tell you the guy's name. I'm not going to say it here, but there's a guy that just consistently mails bad postcards, but I know his name. Bad postcards going to outperform the non-existent one. Back in the day, postcards was that was the only way to farm. Now you can geo-target and do all kinds of fun things online, but it was postcards, which I think still work.
Absolutely.
Still work.
Think about it. Like I used to get it was dog-eared. The printing was faded. It wasn't even a great message. And it didn't matter because the first person that you think of, what was it? Jay, it was that statistic, like people only really know 2 names. And if you're not one of the 2 names that people are thinking of when they think of a real estate agent, then you're out.
Yeah, it's a 2-horse race. So they're going to think of 2 people's names, and if you don't come up in those 2, you're not getting the phone call. And so the same thing happened to me out. Like when I would get mail, you could talk to even more to this. Like there would be a listing that would sell somewhere. And when I lived in Aubrey, it would probably not even be relevant. Like it would just be a house in a neighborhood a mile away, and then I would get 1 postcard, and that's it. And I'd never see them again. And so I couldn't even think of their name now to make fun of them. Never while I lived out there, nor since I've been here in Newman Village, have I gotten something consistent over a period of time where I actually think of the agent. And so like that's the opportunity is in the frequency. Like, that's like my favorite story I tell with Mike Reese when he started doing postcards was I was riding around with him in the Hummer and he's like, man, my mailer's about to drop here in Frisco. And he was mailing all of Frisco, the whole damn city, every house. And he was mailing them like 2-3 times a month. And so his mailer drops, the phone rings, he answers the phone, and this lady goes, is this Michael Reese? I can wallpaper my bathroom with all these postcards you've been sending me. I need to sell my house. I died laughing. I was like, dude, that's the funniest thing I've ever heard. Like, that's just understanding marketing and just beating them over the head with this message, same message over and over, same color, didn't change nothing, over and over and over. That lady was like, man, I'm calling this fool. I got to sell my house. Like, that's what happens when you have mind share. You're just trying to get mind share. When they think of you first or second, you at least have the opportunity. You have the at bat. And that's why this stuff works. And, direct mail, even though it's on the way to the trash can, they see your name. You do that. You think, well, I mail them once, quarter, once a month. That's not enough. They don't, that isn't meaningful. You send them something once a week for 15 weeks. They'll be like, what the hell is this guy keeps sending me this stuff for? That's now, but they remember you. And that's what all you're trying to do in marketing.
That's it. Fifth question to ask. And, it comes back down to, we always joke, right? The law of Mike. If you don't ASK, you don't GET. Have you made any specific offers in the last 7 days that someone could say yes to? Have you made any offers that somebody could say yes to? And we have to remember, right? Offers move people into action. And if we're not making offers to move them into action, we're missing opportunities. So get the offers out there.
I want to tee this one up. Jay, what's the number 1 rule of marketing? Work on your
what? Number 1 rule of marketing?
Always be working on your what?
I don't know.
Your
offer.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, all right, but yeah, I threw you for a loop there. What's the number 2 rule of marketing? Always be
working on your offer.
Working on your offer.
Right.
Yeah. It is. It's so important. Your value proposition, your offer. Hermosi's got the easiest follow because he has pictures and he has stick figures, so he makes it really easy for me to comprehend and read. So $100 million offers. If you guys are looking for a little cheat code to kind of help build out that process, is really cool. And here's the reality, right? We come from the belief you're either growing or you're dying. And if you're sitting on the sidelines, giving yourself permission to sit still, that ain't growing. And growth takes momentum. It takes energy, and got to have the confidence, and you don't build confidence by sitting still. Get into the game, fellas. Great conversation as always. Listen, I am excited about the Honey Badger Award that we're going to be given on a monthly basis. We're still trying to come up with what does that get you? What does that mean? I know we've thrown out some pretty cool things, but we'll be opening soon. Obviously, the go-to resource for everything is honeybadgernation.com. So pay attention, right? As soon as the site goes live, to be able to get in, nominate. We'll have kind of a little more information of what that looks like, what that means, what they're going to get.
We're gonna put a link up, honeybadgernation.com. There's going to be a link right at the top that you can click on it, submit a name that you feel embodies the core values and traits of Honey Badger Nation. And if you don't know what those are, we will be putting those up there too, so that you're completely clear and you'll be like, oh yeah, I know. I got to nominate, Amy. I got to nominate Renee. I got to nominate John, whoever it is. Like, you're going to probably know someone who's been just fighting like a dog out there, and they didn't quit. They didn't give up. And then they won. And that's what we want to see for y'all. So appreciate it, boys. Always good connecting.
Good. Thanks, guys.
Crew.
Thanks, guys.
See you guys.
Yeah.
See you.